Liani Mufaro had spent the whole day helping her 78-year-old grandmother, Mama Zawadi, prepare a small New Year's Eve dinner in their little home in Kasenga Hills. They didn't have much, but the house felt warm with laughter, the smell of spiced stew, and Mama Zawadi humming her old songs. Liani kept saying, "At least we'll welcome the new year together." She truly believed that was enough. But everything changed the moment her parents, Petero and Nanjala, walked in with a few relatives behind them. Their faces were hard, cold, already carrying anger. Before Liani could even greet them, her mother snapped, "This house is not for burdens." Her father added, "Only productive people deserve space here." Their words hit Liani like stones, but it was the way they looked at Mama Zawadi, like she was worthless, that broke her heart. The room went silent. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one stood up for them. Petero began shouting about expenses, about responsibility, about how they were dragging the family down. Nanjala insulted Liani for not earning enough and called Mama Zawadi dead weight. Liani tried to speak, but every word she attempted was crushed under their yelling. Then, minutes before midnight, while fireworks were already sparkling in the distance, they pushed both Liani and her grandmother out of the house. No jackets, no chance to gather their things. Just 2 small bags and a door slammed shut behind them. As the cold night wrapped around them, Liani felt tears burning her eyes. Her grandmother shivered gently but held her hand, and in that terrible moment, with cheers of celebration echoing from nearby homes, Liani realized the people she trusted the most had chosen cruelty over love. She could not imagine that this night of heartbreak would be the beginning of a completely different life. Liani and Mama Zawadi walked slowly through the dark roads of Makoji Township with only 2 small bags in their hands. The night was cold, the wind sharp, and their footsteps sounded too loud on the empty streets. Liani kept wiping her face, but the tears wouldn't stop. She tried to stay strong for her grandmother, but the pain of what had just happened kept crushing her chest. She couldn't understand how her own parents, people she had loved, respected, and trusted, could throw them out like trash. Every time she blinked, she saw the door slamming in their faces. She heard the insults again. She felt the shame burning inside her. She whispered, "Why would they do that to you, Grandma? You don't deserve this. You raised them. You loved them." But Mama Zawadi walked calmly beside her, holding her hand with surprising strength. She didn't cry. She didn't complain. Instead, she kept saying softly, "My child, storms don't scare those who know where they're going." Her voice was steady, almost peaceful, and that confused Liani even more. How could her grandmother be so calm after being humiliated by her own children? Why wasn't she angry or heartbroken, or shouting at the sky like Liani wanted to? Streetlights flickered as they passed, and dogs barked in the distance. A group of people celebrating the new year laughed loudly somewhere far away, their joy echoing through the cold air. That sound made Liani's pain even heavier. While the rest of the world was celebrating, she and her grandmother were walking into darkness with nowhere to go. At one point, Liani stopped walking. She broke down completely, her body shaking as she sobbed. "Grandma, where will we go? We have nothing. They took everything from us." Mama Zawadi gently lifted her chin and made her look up. Her eyes were warm, steady, and full of something Liani couldn't name. "No, my child," she said softly. "They didn't take anything from us. They only returned us to our path." Those words made no sense to Liani, but the way her grandmother said them made her feel a little less alone, a little less broken. They continued walking step by step through the empty streets, with the moonlight guiding them. Liani didn't know what waited ahead. She only knew that she was scared, hurt, and lost. But as she held her grandmother's hand, she also felt the faintest spark of hope, hope she didn't understand yet. One day she would. But tonight, she simply walked beside the woman the world underestimated, unaware that this long, painful walk was leading them toward a future bigger than anything she could imagine. Liani and Mama Zawadi had been walking for what felt like hours. Their feet hurt, their hands were freezing, and the night only grew colder. Makoji Township was quiet at this hour, except for a few late-night shops closing and the distant sound of motorcycles. Liani kept looking around, praying they'd find somewhere safe to rest. Her grandmother's steps were slowing, and worry twisted in Liane's stomach. Just when she thought they couldn't walk anymore, a warm golden light appeared at the end of the street. A small night cafe, paint peeling, one flickering bulb outside, but it looked like heaven compared to the cold darkness around them. A woman in her early 30s stood outside sweeping the doorway. She looked up as they approached and froze when she saw the exhaustion on their faces. My sisters, what happened to you?" she asked gently. Liane tried to answer, but her voice cracked. Mama Zawadi simply smiled weakly. The woman dropped her broom immediately and rushed toward them. "Come inside, both of you. It's too cold to be out here." Her name was Abani, owner, cook, cleaner, everything of the little cafe. She pulled out chairs for them and turned on an extra heater. Liane's fingers tingled painfully as they warmed up. The smell of food made her realize just how hungry she was. Without asking any questions, Abani brought them 2 bowls of fresh soup, warm bread, and hot ginger tea. The moment Liane tasted the soup, tears filled her eyes again, this time from relief. She hadn't felt this kind of kindness in a long time. Abani watched them quietly for a moment, then sighed. "I don't know what happened to you, but nobody deserves to be outside at this hour. You can stay here tonight. I have a back room with blankets." Liane stared at her in disbelief. "You don't even know us." Abani shrugged with a smile. "Sometimes you don't need to know someone to help them." Mama Zawadi touched Abani's hand gently. For the first time that night, her eyes softened with something deep, something emotional, something powerful. "One day," she said in a calm whisper, "my child will repay you more than you can imagine." Abani burst into a small laugh. "Ah, Mama, please. Your gratitude is already enough." She thought it was just an old woman's way of saying thank you. Liane didn't understand it either, but the way her grandmother said those words made a shiver run down her spine. That night, wrapped in borrowed blankets, lying on a mat in the cafe's storage room, Liane listened to the quiet hum of the heater and felt, for the first time since being thrown out, that maybe the world wasn't completely cruel. She didn't know it yet, but this stranger's simple kindness was about to become the beginning of a story that would change all their lives forever. Liane woke up the next morning to the smell of warm porridge and the soft sounds of Mama Zawadi humming. For a moment, she forgot everything that had happened. But then the memories hit, her parents' insults, being pushed out into the cold, crying in the dark streets. Her chest tightened again. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, and found her grandmother already dressed, sitting by the small window of the cafe's back room. "Come sit, my child," Mama Zawadi said gently. Liane sat beside her, feeling confused. Her grandmother looked calm, too calm, almost like she had expected everything that happened. "Grandma," Liane whispered, "what are we going to do now? We have nowhere to go." Mama Zawadi turned her head slowly, her eyes shining with a strange mix of sadness and strength. "Liane, there is something you must know. Something I should have told you long ago." She took a deep breath, as if she was opening a door she had kept locked for decades. "For 40 years," she said softly, "I have carried a secret, a big one." Liane frowned. "What secret?" "I am not a poor woman," Mama Zawadi said calmly. "I own land. Not just a small piece, acres and acres of farmland across Tanzania and Malawi. I have gold mining rights in Zambia. I have businesses, investments, foundations, all hidden." Liane's mouth fell open. "What? Grandma, what are you saying?" Mama Zawadi nodded slowly. "A fortune worth more than $18 million. Liane felt the air rush out of her lungs. She stared at her grandmother, unable to believe a single word. This gentle, simple woman, who lived quietly, who wore cheap clothes, who cooked with love, was a millionaire. "Grandma, why did you hide all of this? Why did we live so simply?" Mama Zawadi looked out the window for a moment, remembering a painful past. "Because your parents tried to steal from me once. Many years ago when they were young. They wanted my land, my savings, everything. When I refused, they turned against me." She shook her head slowly. "So I hid my wealth. I hid it from everyone except my lawyers. Only they know the truth." Liane felt anger rising. "And after everything you've done for them, they still kicked you out?" A small smile touched Mama Zawadi's lips. You think they kicked us out, my child? No. She reached for Liani's hand. I have been waiting to walk out. Liani's heart thumped hard. She realized her grandmother wasn't broken. She wasn't lost. She wasn't abandoned. She was finally free. And Liani, still stunned, still shaking, had no idea that her grandmother's truth was about to change her entire destiny. The journey to Zira Valley felt unreal to Liani. Abani hugged them goodbye, packed food for their trip, and insisted they visit again someday. Liani promised they would, but her mind was racing with everything her grandmother had revealed. She kept staring at Mama Zawadi on the bus, trying to understand how the woman she knew all her life could be carrying such a massive secret. After hours of traveling through open fields and winding mountain roads, the bus finally turned into a long, private path lined with tall trees. Liani frowned. Grandma, where are we? Mama Zawadi only smiled. Home. The path opened into a breathtaking valley, wide, green, and glowing under the afternoon sun. At the center stood a massive estate with white walls, long verandas, and roofs that stretched like wings. Beautiful gardens surrounded it, full of flowers, fruit trees, and quiet fountains. Birds flew above the fields, and several workers walked around with purpose, dressed in crisp uniforms. Liani's eyes widened so much they hurt. She pressed her face to the window, unable to speak. When the bus stopped, two security guards hurried over and bowed slightly to Mama Zawadi. Welcome home, madam. Liani almost stumbled. Madam. Another guard opened the gate, and they entered the estate. The staff lined up respectfully, smiling warmly at her grandmother. Some even looked emotional, as if the owner they had been waiting for had finally returned. Grandma, Liani whispered, her voice shaking. Is all this yours? Mama Zawadi walked slowly across the courtyard, her steps steady, her head high, like a queen returning to her palace. She turned to Liani with a calm, knowing expression. I wasn't poor, my child, she said softly. I was observing. Liani followed her inside the house. The interior was even more stunning. High ceilings, polished wooden floors, beautiful African art, old family photos she had never seen, and a warm scent of herbs that always reminded her of home. Her grandmother's room was large and full of books, maps, journals, and old documents. It looked like the headquarters of someone who planned carefully, quietly, and with great wisdom. Why did you live so simply? Liani asked, still overwhelmed. Mama Zawadi touched her cheek gently. Because money shows you who people really are. And I needed to see the truth. That truth had been painful. But now, she was ready for the next chapter. She opened a large drawer filled with files and keys and placed them in front of Liani. It's time for you to learn everything, she said. This estate, these lands, this legacy. One day, all of it will be yours. Liani felt tears fill her eyes again, but this time they came from shock, gratitude, and a strange new feeling rising in her chest. Purpose. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just walking behind her grandmother. She was being invited to walk beside her, into a world she never imagined she belonged to. Back in Kasenga Hills, the silence of the house hit Petero and Nanjala like a cold wave. For the first time since they had shouted, insulted, and thrown Liani and Mama Zawadi into the night, the reality of the emptiness sank in. The laughter, the small noises of life that Mama Zawadi always brought into the house, they were gone. The walls seemed colder, the air heavier, and the absence of her gentle voice made the place feel hollow. Petero picked up his phone and tried calling Liani. No answer. Nanjala did the same. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic started creeping into their hearts. For a moment, they looked at each other, guilt written across their faces, but pride kept them from speaking. Around the house, relatives who had witnessed the New Year's Eve incident began whispering. You went too far, one aunt said quietly. You treated your mother like a stranger, like dirt. Their words gnawed at Nanjala's stomach, but Petero clenched his fists and muttered, maybe we overreacted. The fear started as a dull ache but quickly grew sharper when a neighbor dropped by, shaking his head. Did you hear? Mama Zawadi was seen, entering Zira Valley Estate, guards opening the gates for her. Petero froze. What do you mean, guards? The neighbor shrugged. That's what they said. Someone from the market saw her, with people holding the gates open like she owns the place. Nanjala's face turned pale. That can't be, she's just an old woman. Petero's knees felt weak. His mind raced. Memories of throwing her out, mocking her, insulting her. Suddenly all those moments seemed like poison he had poured on his own life. Fear was replacing pride, and a cold realization started forming. They might have underestimated Mama Zawadi. What if she really owns something? Nanjala whispered, her voice trembling. Something big. Something important. Petero ran his hand through his hair, pacing the empty living room. We need to find Liani. We need to fix this, he said, though even he wasn't sure what fixing it would mean. Every moment in that quiet house stretched painfully long. Their neighbors' whispers grew louder in their ears, their shame heavier. They replayed the insults, the pushing, the laughter they thought they'd silenced. And with each thought, the truth became clearer. They had not only hurt their daughter and their mother, they had underestimated them. For the first time in decades, Petero and Nanjala felt powerless. And the rumor about Zira Valley Estate was just the beginning of the panic that would soon turn their world upside down. Petero and Nanjala arrived at Zira Valley Estate in a rush, their car tires crunching over the gravel as if speed could erase the humiliation of the night before. They stepped out carrying carefully chosen gifts, flowers, expensive wine, even a basket of fruit, anything to look caring, worried, and apologetic. Their faces were tight with forced smiles, their hands shaking just slightly, betraying the fear underneath. The guards at the gate barely glanced at them, letting them pass as Mama Zawadi herself appeared, walking slowly across the courtyard. She was calm, regal, her eyes steady and unreadable. Liani walked behind her, quietly observing, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and disbelief at the scene unfolding. Mom, Grandma, we were so worried about you, Nanjala began, her voice trembling but trying to sound gentle. Liani, darling, we're so sorry. We didn't mean. Petero jumped in, waving his hands. It was a mistake, huge mistake. We acted out of stress. You must forgive us. We never should have. Mama Zawadi let them speak. She didn't interrupt, didn't show a hint of anger or panic. She simply watched, her face serene, her hands folded in front of her. Petero and Nanjala poured their hearts out, stumbling over words, fumbling with the gifts, their fake apologies hanging in the air like desperate smoke. When they finally paused, Mama Zawadi spoke. Her voice was quiet, but every word hit harder than any shout could. When you kicked us into the night, she said slowly, looking them directly in the eyes, you didn't just abandon me and Liani. You kicked yourselves out of my will. Petero froze. Nanjala's hands dropped, the basket of fruit slipping slightly. What do you mean? Petero stammered, panic creeping into his voice. Mama Zawadi stepped aside, and Liani walked forward, holding a stack of neatly organized legal documents. Everything is in my name now, Liani said calmly, handing the papers to her parents. The estate, the land, the investments, the farms, all of it. I am the sole heir. Petero's face turned pale. He tried to speak, but no words came. Nanjala's lips quivered, and tears threatened to spill, though she tried to blink them away. You really own all this? Nanjala whispered, barely audible. Mama Zawadi's calm eyes met theirs. Yes. And every insult, every shove into the cold night, every cruel word you spoke, they all sealed your fate. Petero and Nanjala stood frozen, holding flowers and baskets that now felt worthless. The people they had tried to humiliate, the ones they had thought were powerless, they were the ones in control now. And for the first time, the couple truly understood the consequences of their cruelty. Their panic had only just begun. As the clock counted down the final seconds of the year, Liani stood beside her grandmother, hand in hand. The fireworks lit the sky, and for the first time she felt truly free. She was no longer the girl they had abandoned. She was strong, confident, and ready to embrace everything the new year, and her life had to offer. That night, surrounded by light, laughter, and love, Liani and Mama Zawadi celebrated not just the new year, but the triumph of courage, resilience, and justice. It was a beginning, a life reborn from pain, stronger and brighter than ever.